Hello, I'm Phoenix Jackson of Fly with Phoenix and the Phoenix Effect, and I want to thank you all for joining me here today for the Invisible Disabilities Association's first annual Love Ideas Conference. You heard that right, it's Love Ideas here in 2020. Now, we have some great conversation for you all, ladies and gentlemen alike. And I have two beautiful ladies with me who I just adore, and I respect for all the knowledge and wisdom and the truth that they're spreading out on their platforms, all revolved around love, relationships, and everything in between. So we'll talk about who I am a little bit more later, but I want to dive into who these beautiful ladies are. Hi, ladies. Thank you guys for joining me right here today. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for having us. Hello.
So I'm going to start here with Karen Ward Ross, and I'm sure some of you all have just recognized her beautiful face, but she is just one of the top producers, executive producers, actresses that have been out here for a very long time. I mean, she's been in the industry in entertainment for so long. I know she looks very, 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 very young. She looks like she's like 15, but she's been in this industry for so long, and she's been on some of our favorite shows, The Game, HBO's Entourage, Jane the Virgin, Lucifer. But very recently, her and her husband, Craig Ross Jr., they formed a show called Monogamy, which is very much revolved around marriage and relationships. And I have learned so much watching that show, and we're going to dive into that a little bit later as well. But welcome, Karen. Thank you for being here. Is there anything else you want to share about yourself to the audience here?
I am excited to be here. This is such a special treat. This conversation is going to be electrifying, and a little random tidbit. I really, really, really love chocolate chip cookies. So if anyone wants to demonstrate love for me, that's my love language. I just love to put it out there.
I love that. I love that. And last but not least, I want to introduce Angela Holton. She is an awesome friend of mine as well, who was just named by Yahoo Finance as one of the top 10 relationship coaches of 2020. And she's an international dating and relationship expert, speaker, and trained and certified coach. So she's the author and founder of Love Sanctuary. And not only, has she authored materials and books and have spoken on BET Her and other platforms about conscious love and conscious dating, but she also, has put together summits that have been revolved around self-healing and self-love. Because, right, you got to get to that space first before you can even step into conscious love and conscious dating. So I want to thank you for being here, Angela, as well. And audience, let's welcome her. And Angela, please tell us something about yourself as well as we get started.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm just going to echo Karen. Karen, you and I are going to get along famously because I love anything chocolate. Like that is like one of my pleasure principles. I have a little chocolate chip cookie or a little piece of chocolate. I'm so excited to be here. Phoenix, thanks for having us. I think it's a wonderful topic. We don't talk enough about love and relationships, how to cultivate them, and how to really start from the inside out and creating those healthy relationships. So I'm excited to be here.
Let's piggyback off of what you just said, because your whole platform is around conscious love and conscious dating. Explain to the audience, what does that mean? And how does that type of dating, that type of consciousness differ from what you normally see, or what's sort of the norm in today's society?
Yeah, so if you think about the norm of dating now, it's a narrative that's been built on scarcity and fear. We're constantly receiving a barrage of messages that we're not enough, that we're not good enough unless we're validated with people, factors, partnerships, spouses, titles, success, you name it, things external to us. But the conscious dating method turns that all around, right? There's no scarcity mindset. There's no fear-based mindset. There's a reason that over 50% of marriages end in divorce. Relationship skills aren't taught. They aren't cultivated, and then they're based on fear, right? A lot of relationships are fear of commitment, fear of betrayal, fear of, you name the gamut is there. But the conscious dating method says out the gate, I'm enough. I'm complete, I'm whole, I'm inner fulfilled. I feel purposeful in my life. I'm doing what I love. And this partner is just a mere complement of me. But I have filled my well so high with love that I'm not seeking that validation. It's less about seeking a partnership and more about becoming the partner that you want. And then there's a couple other overarching topics, which is self-awareness. Conscious love and conscious dating is about a degree in self-awareness. You know who you are, who's showing up on the date, who's showing up in the bed each morning, year after year in your marriage. You know, you're aware of your wounds, your triggers. You're not sabotaging your relationship, even in your marriage. You're not projecting your core wounds, but you're aware of your partner's core wounds, and you're protecting your partner from your core wounds. The other two that I would say is intentionality. You are intentional about your words, your thoughts, your actions, your deeds, what you want. You show up. You show up in dating. You show up in your marriage. And then the last part, which I already sort of talked about, was self-love. You're dating with self-compassion, non-judgment, and really loving and honoring yourself in the process of learning who you are through relationships.
So as you're speaking on all this, I'm just nodding and agreeing like, yes, all that is totally, it's just totally true. And I've been married before, divorced, and back in a committed relationship. And so everything you're saying just holds true just across the board. Karen, she's just talked about the things you have to sort of prepare yourself for as you're entering into that, you know, conscious dating, hopefully to get into that relationship, to get into marriage, or whatever your end game is. I know everyone's end game is different, but what did she say that kind of struck for you? You know, did you practice these things as well as you stepped into a space? Because I know you and your husband have such an intentional marriage.
We do. Everything that Angela was speaking about, I'm over here trying to tell you, stop nodding your head. You're like a bobblehead over here. So resonates on every level. And a little known, maybe unknown, but kind of known fact is it actually took a decade for my husband and I to get married, for me to get married, for the reasons that Angela spoke about. I grew up in a space of consciousness, which is just bringing awareness. So much of our lives, we move on automatic pilot, and we're so externally focused that we tend to think things are happening to us, when actually, in actuality, they're happening through us. So if there's something being reflected in your experience, then it's an opportunity to look within to, as Angela mentioned, your core wounds. And so my point in all that was that at the point that I met my husband, it was very clear to me that I had some housekeeping to do, that I was projecting onto him. In a lot of ways, he was projecting onto me. There's a lot of codependent elements. And so when I came around about 9 years later, I had healed a lot of that so that we could then come into a conscious union and reflect the best in each other as opposed to the wounding and the worst in each other. So all that to say it all resonates.
I love that. And back to you, Angela, like, so you've been talking about conscious dating and conscious, you know, love for quite some time. But of course, 2020 has been a year, as I have said, that has snatched everybody's edges off, just completely snatched everyone's edges bald, just has pretty much uprooted us, unearthed us, has unsheathed things in us that we have to look at, right? You can't continue to run from yourself. And I think this year has really taught us that. What do you think has been different in 2020 specifically, now that everything has been confined, versus the other years as it, you know, pertains to conscious dating or just dating, period?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that, because it is important. Like, we are being unearthed. Like, there's no hiding from yourself. There's no running from yourself. You have to sit with yourself, whether you like yourself or not. You've got to be in the discomfort. And I think it's such a healing process. I'm hoping that people engage in their own healing during this time, rather than finding other things to fill their voids as they would if we weren't in a pandemic. You know, we are in a pandemic. Dating has changed. It hasn't been obliterated. I want to give people courage that this is actually an awesome, awesome time to date.
How?
Yes, it is. You know, because your relationships are cultivated on the foundation of things that are necessary, the mental and emotional. And when we were really on lockdown, you had to delay the gratification of the physicality. You couldn't meet in person. You couldn't be jaded or skewed by the butterflies and the sparks, right? You know, that often make us think there's a real connection because there's chemistry. This allows us to spend time doing things old school, talking on the phone for hours, you know, doing some FaceTime, which is new for this modern world, but it gives you time to cultivate more meaning and more foundational aspects and skills of a relationship. And then when you meet in person, you're socially distanced, hopefully, and then it builds and it grows, and then the physicality can come later, you know, when you've built a more solid foundation and not seeing so much with our eyes and what's stirring, because butterflies are lies. That's my saying. Butterflies our lives. Just because you have butterflies with someone doesn't mean you have a real deep intrinsic connection.
Yes. And it's so interesting that you say that, because I brought this panel together because we're three women who are all just, so just surfacely in a lot of ways successful in all the things, right? But we also all are very conscious and very rooted and grounded in levels of spiritual truth and balance. And, we all are in three different stages in our development of where we are in relationships or in our relating to relationships. So Angela, you are out there consciously dating, a single, beautiful woman out there seeking and, ready for that beautiful partner. And I am in a committed, loving relationship that is long distance. We'll jump into that too, and what that, the parameters around that has been. And then Karen, you have been married for over 10 years and have just two beautiful children. And, we're all just at three various stages, but the stages that we're in, a lot of women and men are in right now. And that's very interesting to brought up that we have the old school way of doing things, because talking on the phone, is like, I feel like everyone should be doing it, and just, not even always FaceTiming, but just hearing each other's voice and listening to the cadences in each other's voice and actually getting to know each other. I think there's fun in that. It takes me back to like high school and middle school. But Karen, you've been married for 10 years and you have, like I said, two beautiful children. How has 2020 sort of impacted and shifted how you all live from day to day with your family?
That's a great question. Well, I think like most of us, there was a big eruption, like a shock when the pandemic came initially. So we're all kind of trying to find our footing. Although I have a confession, I have to admit, it was surreal, yet there was an aspect that I think my whole family appreciated, which is simply slowing down. Like we were all so much on this rat race and get up, get the kids to school, do this, do that, do that. So moments of connection were just lost. And now we were able to kind of leisurely wake up. We were able to kind of spend time and connect. So for all those gifts, I call them the COVID gifts, I can appreciate that. How it's altered our relationship is, at the risk of sounding too optimistic, I will say that it's deepened our capacity. Now, that doesn't come without the strife and struggle of being, closely confined. We both work from home, except when we're filming, and we were supposed to start shooting season 3 of our television series. So that came to a halt. And, tension is there, and there's little annoyances and things that you're not used to. And I think it brought us to a centering point where we do an activity, and this is from the Gottman Institute, that was amplified during COVID, where we do appreciations, where we will take a day out each week and actually honor and give thanks and appreciation, even if it's you did the dishes or you took the kids so I could work on this. Because those little thankless moments, I think, become exasperated when you're under the stress of like a pandemic. And so you have to consciously intend to realign yourself to, well, what is working here? What can I give thanks for? And in doing that, there's an intimacy into me, you see, by activating that. So to succinctly answer your question, I think it made us more conscious and aware of the need and desire to do that, to keep ourselves connected.
I love that. So just the practical gratitude.
Practical
in action.
In action. And the next step that we would take from that, after we list 5 things that we appreciated, it's a way of being seen also. And I think Angela, can absolutely attest to this, is that, we want to be held and seen in our relationships. And we're so busy in the hustle and flow of life that we forget to take those moments. And so in doing that, it allows us to be present as parents, and allows us to be present with our kids, doing family art projects, and just really trying to find the beauty of the moment, since we're understanding now in 2020 that it's also transient and it can change in an instant. So that's this opportunity.
I love that. I love that so much. And we'll talk more about like some practical tips we can give our audience at the end so that they can nurture themselves as they're single individuals, and they can nurture themselves in their relationships during this time, because I know that's been a real tough challenge for just a lot of people. But you and your husband, you guys actually work hand in hand. And I know, that will make some people pull out their hair themselves, that they have to see this person every day and they have to work together as an actual team. You know, it's very challenging. And you guys have a show called Monogamy, which I'm just going to do a shameless plug. It's on UMC.tv, and it's also could be streamed through Amazon. You guys just signed a worldwide distribution deal with Netflix. Congratulations! I'm so excited. When I tell you guys, I've been binge watched the first season of the show in like 2 days because I was so in love with the concept. I'm not gonna give too much of it away. You guys have to go out and watch the show Monogamy. But as you guys were creating that show and doing everything and just working together as a team, so not even just husband and wife, but you guys are a team as well during COVID.
Right.
What have you all learned most about each other during this time? Because I feel like this time is teaching people about each other.
Yeah, it definitely is teaching. So Craig Ross Jr.'s Monogamy, our television series, is about 4 married couples who are on the brink of divorce. They've tried and exhausted everything. And so they engage in an unconventional therapy called swap therapy, where for 2 months, they actually exchange spouses with the person that they think is their perfect spouse. And how that came about for Craig and I, it really came as pillow talk. One day we were in the bed talking, and I think he was on his phone doing something, and I got annoyed because it was a trigger for me. And we were saying, well, my perfect husband would know to put the phone down. And then we went on, well, my perfect wife would know X, Y, and Z. So that was kind of the genesis of it. And perfect, I'm using in quotes. And again, it goes to understanding, having a request of your partner, which is valid, and honoring that, and then having a demand and expecting them to fulfill it. So that's just a little sidebar. Anyway, back to the show. So
yes, it is.
and we create the show, and we're pregnant while we're developing it. So we shoot season 1, and we've just given birth. And so there's a lot of just newness happening because as Phoenix mentioned, I've done television shows off on my own. My husband has directed. He's directed a lot of network TV shows from NCIS to Prison Break. But this was our first time actually coming together as a husband-wife team. And so it starts with the foundational respect for each other. That's just always going to be present. We may have creative differences, we may have annoyances and pet peeves, but that foundational respect must be there. And these are my boundaries of how to communicate with me, and I'm not going to cross them with you. So that's something that we constantly exercise. Mm-hmm. And if I'm honest, we really just love creating together, and that's part of the gift. And I think every relationship has to find their unique pearl. The things that are unique. We create, we create babies together, create TV shows together, we create on every level. And so when we are amiss, we come back to that simple understanding that this is a gift that we get to share to each other, with each other, as each other. So that's kind of how we move through that.
I love that. I love that quote of every relationship has to find that pearl, because that is so true.
Yeah, and you turn into that. You come back to that.
Yes.
So,
and just for both of you, for Angela and Karen, is there anything that you guys have instituted that has helped you cope better with the energy of the now? Right? Things are just
great question.
There's a vibration in the air. There's tension. There's pain. There's an exacerbated fear. Things that a lot of pain and things that people go through is just being amplified on a whole nother level, right? So how are you two just individually coping with this? And what tips can you give the audience? What are the top 2 tips you can give the audience for coping just as individuals right now? Angela?
My first go-to is my faith. I spend time in the Word, and I read scripture more than I ever have before every day. And so this time is rooted in my faith, and I'm anchored in that faith. And I think when you're anchored in, faith, you have stronger coping skills. So honestly, this time has been about growing closer to God for myself, which inherently is me growing closer to myself, my purpose, my life's work, what I love doing. And through that relationship with God, that I've been committed to being my partner. Everything else has just been flowing really seamlessly. I know it's a tough time for a lot of people, and it has been tough, but one of the things that has helped me so much is my relationship with God and knowing that I don't have to do so much. I do a lot less and I create so much more. You know, we're human beings, not human doings, and we're always doing. And I am finding this beautiful balance and sacred space of doing so much less and being so much more productive, so much more creative, and just in this amazing flow and rhythm. So initial onset of the pandemic, there was fear. But I took my fear to my faith and I prayed over it, and I pray over everyone. And that's really what gets me through. I have to be anchored in my faith, and I journal and I read scripture and I share it with people. I take Bible courses, and that's my saving grace.
I love that. I love that. And Karen, what about you?
I'll piggyback on that I think having a strong sense of connection to a power grander than yourself, for me, is a way to navigate these tumultuous times. I'll add to that in tandem with what Angela shared, finding rituals and practices that anchor me here in the now. I have always loved tea, and tea is a very sacred practice for me of conscious sipping. And hence I've created a platform called Meditations, because it marries my idea of self-reflection and meditation with tea. Journaling, as Angela mentioned, is very big to just process out, because a lot of stuck energy and thoughts and fear actually literally affects our nervous system. So if we don't allow an exit point where we can actually process the information, then we find ourselves in chronic fear, or the body will give signals, pain, headache, or relationships will become strained, because what's not being said is the thing that needs to be said. So it's whether it's through the voice of prayer, of your meditation time, of attuning and listening in, your journaling time. It's finding that for you, your own pearl. So not only the pearl of your relationship, your pearl. And then I'll add to that, this is the biggest thing, and this has gotten me through any challenge, any constriction, is to, as best as you can, and the harder it is to do it, the more compelled you can be to do it. And that is just to find gratitude. The best prayer that we can ever give is thank you. So to find any stretch, and I've said this before, because with health challenges that we can have on another podcast associated with my pregnancy, I literally had to go to the place of giving thanks if and when I could use the restroom. So something as simple as your body is functioning. You're not telling your heart to beat or your chest to breathe. So you're able to breathe. If you had a meal today. So even if it gets really bad, then you have to just find the simplest things that I could hear a bird singing outside. And if I can hear that, I'm breathing. And if I'm breathing, that means there's hope, and I don't know the way, I can't see the way, but there's a way that this can work out for me. So sometimes you have to take it on that level when things are seemingly so constricted and forces seem so strong.
I love that. Ladies, y'all better listen. You gotta drop these gems on people. And I wanna pivot just a little bit back to you, Angela, about what are the top to-dos if someone is single in this time when they're seeking to create a purposeful connection with someone? And then what are some top don'ts? What should they not?
Okay. I love that question. Well, the first do is, really take an assessment of where you are in the relationship with yourself that's where it starts. The genesis has to begin with you before you start thinking about a connection with someone else. Do you feel good about yourself on a day-to-day? Do you like who you are and the woman or the person you're becoming, right? Do you find purpose in your life? Do you feel fulfilled? And when you feel that you can say yes to that and you're not seeking validation, you got to get out there and date. Right? The conscious dating method is being intentional. And, I hear from clients all over the world, oh, the men in my city are this, the women in my city are this. Well, really? Everywhere you go, there's just no one there. And there's almost
8 billion people.
8 billion people. There's just no one. And it's really a narrative that needs to shift. You're only searching for one person. Focus on what you want, not what you don't want. If you focus on the mindset that there's a scarcity of good people out there to date, that's going to be your experience. If you focus on online dating is terrible, I hate it, that's going to be your experience. It's such a mindset shift in everything that we do. Think positively. Get out there and date online. Online dating is the perfect platform to increase your dating pool, to gain experience, practice. You just want to jump into a relationship and you have no practice or skills and communication and being vulnerable and rejection. or letting someone else know you're not interested. So practice dating, make it curious, make it fun, and not be so attached to the outcome each time you go out with someone. They're the one. They're the one.
Oh, we plan the wedding, and everyone's like, and men are like, she's gonna have all of my children. That happens in the first.
I've been there. And then when you don't get that call back, you're so disappointed and it hurts. Remove that, and just remove that and just have fun. And I know that seems like really simple, but that really is the game changer. Is I'm going to go out there, and it's a self-discovery journey. I'm going to learn about myself by seeing who shows up and how I show up in that relationship. And then I have my clients come back and say, learn something about yourself. Learn one thing about yourself through your date. And if you learn anything, then that date was not a waste of time. My biggest My biggest don'ts is don't sit home watching Netflix expecting for someone to show up.
Just magically walk through the door. Just whisper.
You have to use strategy and intentionality in dating. And the most important decision, Karen, I'm sure you could attest to this, choosing a life partner is the most important decision you will make. And becoming a parent is one of the other choices. Be strategic. Right, plan. We do continuing education for anything else we want. We do vocational training for anything we want. But when it comes to relationship, I'm human. It's my birthright to just be in connection. No, it is our birthright to be in human connection, but we're not hardwired for relationship. Good relationships require skill. So get out there dating. Don't attach an outcome to each person you go out with. Don't ghost anyone. Show up in the same integrity that you want to be treated. Mm-hmm. Be non-judgmental toward yourself. It's so easy to sabotage and say, it's easy to say, I want to be in a relationship. I want to be married. And then every person who comes, you find a reason to sabotage it.
Mm. Yeah.
Be aware of how you're sabotaging. I say date multiples, get out there and see who you are, discover parts of yourself that you may not have, revealed or been in touch with, and just have fun. Yeah. It's that curiosity and lightness that attracts that energy towards you.
That's true. And Karen, on your end, as someone who is married and coupled up, what would you say are some just to-dos, practical to-dos for any married couple who are now confined and for a while, so probably want to step on each other's toes on purpose. and then what are some what are things that they should just not do? What could be just toxic things that they just should not engage in if they want to be successful right now?
Those are really good questions. I think one of you mentioned about getting curious. Maybe Angela mentioned that. I think arousing that curiosity gene and going on a journey, a hunt to discover new things about each other, new ways of connecting, even if it's, something silly like going off to the bathroom together and sharing a Twinkie. I don't eat Twinkies, but by way of exaggeration, an example, something, kind of off the cuff that you wouldn't do, just to create these kind of little moments. Because one thing that helps me when I'm in something that doesn't feel good is to think about how I'm going to talk about it. Because we inevitably will all come back to this moment and say, remember in 2020 when we did X, Y, and Z? So you want to load in those, remember the time when we snuck off in the closet and did whatever we did? Or so find ways to get curious and to use the momentum of the moment to create connection in a different way. As I mentioned before, we put on some music and have family art projects, husband and I will have a little vino. So it becomes like this, finding the fun in this crazy, unpredictable time. So as a couple, if you can have a goal to do that, or just, create a chart or something for it doesn't matter what it is. It's the intention behind it, as we've been talking about, the intentionality. And it's hard for me to speak on the don'ts because obviously every marriage has their own rules, but you don't want to compromise who you are, obviously, for the I don't want to say for the greater good, but you don't want to go against who you are, because then now you've built up resentment and judgments and so forth. So it's really important to stay conscious and aware of what you're feeling and find times to express that in a healthy way so that your partner can receive it and not use this time to, layer on levels of resentment that, post-COVID, everybody explodes because you didn't handle and deal with whatever's going on. And it can be an entry point, babe, I'm feeling right now, I'm feeling really anxious. It could be the virus, it could be other things, but I want to come to you. I don't necessarily know how to fix it. I'm not asking you to fix it, but I just want to create a space that I'm feeling X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. How are you feeling right now? Just kind of softening the space so that there can be a moment of connection instead of disconnection in time where we're all feeling, whatever we're feeling during this time. So
right. No, yes, you're right. And it's interesting that you all are saying all of these things. These are such good nuggets. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, ladies, so much. These are such good nuggets because people single in, now the new word is entanglement. In an entanglement or what may have you, people are struggling with just some base level skill sets. And Angela, you spoke to this about, being in a relationship is a skill set, and it's something that isn't taught. And a lot of us as well, is something that we don't see growing up. I even have a friend whose parents been married for 36 years, but he never even saw them like hug and kiss, right? The affection and the nurturing. So there's things that I think all of us have to, of course, grow and learn in. And I just want to chime in a little bit on that in the sense that I am sort of in between you all, because I'm in a committed relationship, but we are all long distance. And we have definitely taken lots of years of in and out and other things to get to this space. I definitely, at some points, Angela, you'd be proud of me. I definitely have gone through conscious dating, or at least what I thought was it at different times. And then there were times where I just was out to just have fun and explore and sort of learn a little bit more about Phoenix in the midst of the various mirrors that would pop up in other people. And during COVID, it had been a really tough time for us for various reasons, that we don't have to just step into right now. But when you are, building with someone, but you're far apart and then the pandemic hit and now you can't even be there for each other in physical proximity the way you need, it was tough for a while. And a few months ago, because of circumstances, we were forced to say, okay, we have to travel back and forth as much as possible and make sure we spend that time. But I know what got us through sort of that first shutdown was definitely the communication. We would be on the phone for 3 to 4 hours some nights. And when I tell you it felt like high school all over again, and I've been knowing this person for 9 years. So it's not like I'm necessarily getting to learn anything brand new, but I've actually learned a lot of things about him and even about myself, digging into his perception. And when you have a yin and a yang with someone and you're totally opposite in how you see the world, you really grow as you dig into perspectives. And so I would even challenge people to continue to get to know someone who you may not be 100%, you guys don't think the same or see the world the same, because you could expand, you can open yourself up and open them up to another way of thinking in life. And I think this year is about that as well. It's about us opening ourselves up, evolving, expanding, and the communication, hours of communication, and making sure that connection is still forged deeply so that we can get to the next level when things open up, so that we can, foster and nurture what each other needs. That it's just been paramount. So I would offer as well, my little tidbit as someone in the middle to people, is just that don't be afraid to spend that time. It is a work in progress. Like, spend that time getting to know someone, spend that time away from text, away from social media, and actually engage with the person that you say that you like or love or what may have you.
I love that. Can you guys hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
I want to add something to that I think isn't a part of the conversation for married couples or single people, is to get the support that you need. Marriage therapy is wonderful. We have a conscious therapist that can guide us and navigate through this. Find someone like Angela. Get the support, get the coaching. Like we talked about, we get training for every other aspect of our lives, but we all have, a foundational template of what relationships should be and what love should be, stemming from childhood, whether our needs were met or not. And a lot of it is unconscious. And so without the mirror of a professional trained therapist or a coach or a guide, it can be really easy to get caught up in this cycle of them. And so you find yourself dating the same person over and over again with the same name, or saying things like, oh, I keep finding good men or women. Well, look, if you keep running into that, there's one common denominator. That's you. So that's not from a place of shame or blaming yourself, because that's not healthy or productive, but it's from a place of taking honest stock and reflection and saying, what could be some of the patterns that I'm duplicating that I'm seeing duplicated in my relationships or dating, and how can I help that? And that goes for married couples too. Like,
yes,
that's when it really starts. I'm a big advocate of that, and I think there's a lot of stigma associated with that, and so I'm here. Part of my work and opportunity is to kind of demystify that and normalize it. Like, get the support, get the coaching. So
I and thank you for saying that, because me and my partner are both in therapy, like full time. Like, we are both, and we've had to be, because of our circumstances of losing a child recently. We had to, being physically apart, losing a child to stillbirth, like, there's certain things you can't run from. So people are already trying to run from what's happening in the world, but when you have extreme circumstances that happen at home, close to home, in your heart, you have to get that focus. And I would probably be, lost if I didn't have just someone who was there to back me up emotionally in therapy. I had the spiritual tools to get past some of the things that I was feeling. And, because obviously unfortunately, I've had trauma throughout my whole life, so I'm able to deal with it. I've dealt with therapy and things my whole life, but I had to go in even a level deeper. And my partner did too. And he was in therapy for the first time, and it's just been so life-changing. So yes, thank you, Karen, so much, because there is a stigma, but in our country where we have over 30,000 suicides a year, that's, I think, the fact that we're not talking about it enough is, it's a very real thing. So thank you so much for really bringing that up. That is so true. And I want to give you ladies a quick moment to plug in where people can actually find you all. And audience, we will have more conversations with these two ladies specifically and individually at Fly with Phoenix podcast in the flywithphoenix.tv website. So you guys can go there in the future and actually see even more, content revolved around these ladies and what they have to bring. But I want you all to share, where can individuals find you, Angela, and where can individuals find you and your shows, Karen?
Sure. Thank you for asking. And I've had such a wonderful time. And if you don't mind, I just wanted to add, it is so important to normalize seeking help and therapy for relationships. Why is it that we go to a doctor for our physical health? We'll see a therapist maybe for our mental health. We'll go to a trainer when we want to get our bodies in shape. We'll go to a spa to get our skin, and an esthetician to get our skin in shape. But a relationship, we leave it to guesswork and like winging it. We just wing it, and we don't have to. There are experts and professionals that are here to teach practical tools and strategies. And Karen, have you ever thought about being a dating coach over there?
Well, I kind of do it on a TV show, which I'll talk about, but thank you. I kind of do it through the show, but yeah, let's talk.
I hear myself talking. I'm like, wow, she makes a darn good coach. So yes, thank you, Phoenix, for asking that. You can find me at lovesanctuary.com, and from that is the umbrella of all the other things that I do. I'm most visible on Instagram, Angela N. Holton, and you'll find all the things that I'm working on: retreats, workshops, courses. I do teach an online course for conscious dating, and it's dating is in quotation marks. And Karen, I'm sure you can attest to this, that the conscious dating method is about dating yourself no matter what stage in the game that you're in a relationship. Whether you're single and you want to be alone, single and you want to meet someone else, in an entanglement, in a committed partnership like you, Phoenix, or married for 10 years, you're always going back to self, always to that committed relationship. So thank you so much for this opportunity to share the work that I'm so passionate about.
Of course, thank you. And I'm glad you're doing it. Like, people need this, right? Yeah. People need what you have to offer. Yeah. So I love it. Thank you so much, Angela. And Karen, where can people find you?
Absolutely. So I am on all social channels as Karen Ward Ross, and that's Karen spelled Caryn. Like Angela, I'm most active on Instagram, although that's switching because I have a podcast called Meditations with Karen, and that's T-E-A, like sipping, drinking. And I have my shows that you can find on my platforms, some wonderful guests, but the conversation is all around bringing consciousness and intentionality to your life and really looking at how we can take ownership and responsibility of our gifts and our own healing so that we can deliver the gifts that we were born to do on this planet. So that's, all part of my deal. And then as Phoenix was mentioning, our show, Craig Ross Jr.'s Monogamy, is also on Instagram. And my husband and I really believe relationships are mirrors. So that is kind of what undergirds that show. And I have another show in development with my husband centered around relationships, but it's really this idea that the people in your life reflect parts of ourselves that are whole and, that's wounded. And that's the rub, that's the drama. That's why we make drama series, so we can get to our wounds and have a conversation about it. And, Craig Ross Jr.'s Monogamy, the series is really about getting some perspective, because a lot of times on a relationship, you may need distance and perspective to see it more clearly so that you can come back to yourself, because the most important relationship we all have is with ourselves, as Angela was saying. So that's my little spiel.
Thank you. And thank you so much, ladies. And again, you all, I am Phoenix Jackson, and I'm a speaker and author as well, and the COO of Phoenix Effect. And you guys can find this plus more at flywithphoenix.tv. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you, ladies. Again, I love you so much. Thank you for sharing your love, sharing your wisdom with the audience. I know they're going to get so many pearls of wisdom. So thank you all so much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye, Phoenix. Bye.
Platform.
Yeah, thank you so much.